Chapter 18A Realm of Despair. Besides the Luo brothers, there were 4 other men in blood-stained clothes, making a total of 6 corpses, but there wasn't a single one left on the ground in front of them. What a strange place. Liu Feng's expression was solemn. He was certain that no one had been around for the past half-hour, but why had those corpses disappeared without a trace, and without any commotion? This indicates that the problem definitely lies within this forest, or even within the entire ancient city. It seems we need to be extra careful. Liu Feng could vaguely sense danger. After all, these things were happening too strangely. First, there was a maze-like passage, then a dense forest suddenly appeared, and then several corpses mysteriously disappeared. All of this indicated that this place was not simple. Having temporarily calmed his doubts, Liu Feng felt that his perception of the surrounding elements had become clearer. In the battle just now, influenced by the despairing atmosphere, he had actually broken through the bottleneck and raised his cultivation to the level of a second-tier demon swordsman. Making a breakthrough in such a place undoubtedly boosted Liu Feng's confidence. Now, if he were to encounter a 5th-tier swordsman like Luo Xiong again, he would probably only need 1 sword strike to kill him. With a light step, Liu Feng vanished into the depths of the dense forest. Deep in the forest, in a clearing between trees, 4 or 5 adventurers surrounded a boy in blue, and the situation looked very bad, with signs that a fight was about to break out at any moment. Among the adventurers, the leader was a burly man with a face full of scars. His eyes were fixed on the blue figure in front of him, and a fierce glint flashed in his eyes. He said, "Humph, brat. Hand over that treasured sword to me right now, or I'll take your life." "Sigh. I'd like to hand it over too, but there's only 1 precious sword, and there are 5 of you, so it's not easy to divide it among you." The boy in blue had a faint smile on his lips. If Liu Feng were here, he would probably be very surprised, because the blue figure in front of him was none other than Wana, who had gotten separated from him when he came in. The burly man's eyes darted around and he sneered, "Little brat, you're about to die and you still want to sow discord? Fine. I'll kill you first, and then we can divide the treasured sword among ourselves." As soon as he finished speaking, the burly man made his move, drawing his broadsword and leaping into the air to unleash a strike. Seeing this, Wana retreated rapidly while shouting to the others, "Hey, this guy wants to keep the treasure for himself. Once he gets the sword and tries to run away, will you be able to stop him?" Upon hearing this, the other 4 people's expressions changed, and hesitation appeared on their faces. For a moment, none of them went up to help. "You wretched brat, I'm going to tear you apart alive today." The burly man was furious. He had indeed had such a thought at first, planning to escape as soon as he got the treasured sword, because he was the most powerful among the people present. Besides, once he had the treasured sword in hand, no one could stop him from escaping. He never expected that this kid would blur out his thoughts, and he was immediately furious and embarrassed, wishing he could kill the other person with 1 slap. As for Wanner, she never intended to get entangled with these people in the first place. She would seize any opportunity to escape. Otherwise, with her strength, it would be impossible for her to fight 5 people at once. Whoosh! The blade flashed fiercely, and the burly man stomped the ground, his feet creating a gust of wind. A ruthless glint flashed in his eyes, as he wanted to end the fight in 1 move. This time, Wanner didn't choose to dodge. Instead, she met the attack head-on with her sword. Court death. A glint of joy flashed in the burly man's eyes. He was afraid that the other party would keep hiding, but seeing that the other party had actually delivered himself to his door, he was naturally delighted and swung his sword out. Clang! The swords clashed, accompanied by a crisp booming sound. Wana was thrown back and fell into the bushes behind her. "Haha, little kid, you're still too green to mess with me," the burly man laughed smugly. However, his smile didn't last long before it became somewhat stiff, because after so much time, there was still no movement from the bushes. The burly man became suspicious and moved closer. He used his broadsword to part the bushes, and his expression changed drastically. There was no one left in the bushes. "Quick, after him. That kid got away." A roar filled with shock and anger shook the entire dense forest. The four people who had been watching from behind also changed their expressions and hurriedly followed the burly man in pursuit. Rustle. A blue shadow flashed through the dense forest. It was Warner, who had just escaped. She had initially used words to sow discord among the group, and then used the recoil from the burly man's sword strike. All of these steps were meticulously planned by her. "You're all too green to fight me." A hint of smugness flashed in Warner's eyes as she touched the storage pouch at her waist, which contained a low-grade, treasured sword. However, just as she was secretly pleased with herself, she didn't notice that a white figure suddenly appeared in front of her. By the time she realized it, it was too late, and the two of them had already collided. The white figure was none other than Liu Feng, who was heading deeper into the dense forest. Before he could even think, two soft mounds of flesh pressed tightly against Liu Feng's chest, the wonderful sensation sending a shiver down his spine. Ah! When her sensitive area was attacked, Warner cried out in surprise, her body involuntarily leaning backward. However, just as she was about to fall to the ground, a warm, large hand supported her back and pulled her into an embrace. Only then did she realize that the man in front of her was Liu Feng, and her pretty face blushed with embarrassment. Liu Feng also looked quite helpless. He didn't mean to take advantage of the girl. Although it felt pretty good, he really didn't do it on purpose. "You brat, stop right there." Just then, the burly man and his men caught up, but they were stunned when they saw the two embracing. You guys." The burly man was speechless for a moment, then spat on the ground. What a fucking bad luck to run into two pieces of glass. Glass. Upon hearing those two words, Liu Feng's face immediately darkened. It seemed that the other party regarded them as gay. But that was understandable, since Wanu always dressed as a man. "Who are these people?" Liu Feng asked, frowning. Warner pouted. "They're all people trying to steal my treasure. Let's get rid of them all." "Oh, that's easy." Sensing the nonchalant tone in Liu Feng's words, the burly man flew into a rage, letting out several cold laughs. "Kid, are you still half asleep? Open your dog eyes. I'm a 5th-tier swordsman," Liu Feng said expressionlessly. "I don't care what level you are. If you survive one of my sword strikes, I'll let you go." Before Liu Feng broke through, he would probably have been quite wary of a 5th-tier swordsman, but now, that level of cultivation is nothing to him. "Don't joke around. That's the funniest joke I've ever heard." The burly man laughed in anger, his expression arrogant. How dare a mere 2nd-tier swordsman be so arrogant in front of him? He's asking for death. "Watch me chop off your head with one stroke." The burly man smiled sinisterly, his foot lightly touching the ground, his figure flickering and unpredictable, his broadsword dancing wildly like a silver dragon, its light flashing and its chilling aura palpable. Liu Feng stood still, releasing an aura of despair that enveloped the other person's mind. What? Suddenly, a sense of despair filled the burly man's mind. His momentum plummeted, his mind went blank, his swordsmanship lost its accuracy and power, leaving him with numerous openings. Liu Feng, having already used this time, arrived in front of the other party and directly severed the burly man's head. A torrent of blood gushed out, and the burly man's headless corpse crashed to the ground, all within a few seconds. The other adventurers, witnessing this scene, were terrified and dared not linger for even a moment, scattering in all directions for their lives. Liu Feng was too lazy to chase after them one by one. After taking the burly man's storage pouch, he began to focus his attention on the man's corpse. He wanted to see if this corpse would also mysteriously disappear, just like the corpses of Luo Xiong and the others. Seeing the young man's solemn expression, Warner felt a pang of curiosity. She didn't disturb him, but waited quietly to the side. The time it takes to drink a cup of tea passed, and nothing unusual happened. 15 minutes later, nothing had changed. However, just as Warner was about to complain, a sudden change occurred. The location of the burly man's corpse began to emit thick, black gas, which instantly covered the entire body. The next moment, The corpse visibly shriveled up and finally turned into a cloud of blood vapor, disappearing without a trace. How is this possible? Wanner's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets, her face filled with horror. Chapter 19: The Mysterious Palace. What devoured them? Liu Feng frowned. Why was there such an evil black aura emanating from the ground? And how could this black aura corrode the corpse in such a short time, leaving not even bones behind? Wanner covered her mouth in fear and said in a trembling voice, I think we should leave here quickly. The scene before me was so bizarre that it sent chills down my spine. Liu Feng shook his head. It's no use. Inside this ancient city, it's all the same. No matter where you escape to, you're still inside the ancient city, and you'll never be safe. After saying that, he looked at Wanner and continued, I suspect that this forest is not real at all. Not real? You mean, we're in an illusion? Thinking about it, Wanner's expression changed again. She had heard from her elders that among the many Taoists, there was a type of array master who was good at setting up various arrays, one of which was the illusion array. Aside from illusion arrays, she really couldn't think of any other way to create such a lifelike illusionary forest. What do we do now? Wanner stared at Liu Feng with her beautiful eyes. At this moment, she was completely flustered and could only place all her hopes on Liu Feng. We can't stay here any longer. We must find an exit and get out immediately. Liu Feng's face was solemn. This starry ancient city was not a treasure land of immortal sex at all. It was more like a large graveyard. If he stayed any longer, who knew what strange things might happen next? Let's go. Looking at the somewhat dejected girl beside him, Liu Feng couldn't help but sigh softly, patted her shoulder, and helped her up. If Liu Feng hadn't possessed 10 times the mental strength of an ordinary person, he would probably have been discouraged and just as frustrated as Wanner. After learning that the forest was an illusion, Liu Feng and his companion became extremely vigilant, keeping a close watch on any unusual activity around them. Under this heightened state of alertness, they encountered almost no major dangers along the way. Half an hour later, a vast lake gradually came into view. Looking out, the lake stretches for miles, its surface a vibrant blue, nearly 10 miles wide, with no end in sight. In the center of this lake, on a small island, stands an ancient palace. This palace complex probably stretches for several miles, its buildings extending endlessly, giving it a mysterious and ancient feel. The pitch-black passage connects the center of the lake to both banks. At the end of the passage, in the center of the palace gate, a huge black vortex blocks the entrance, completely covering the gate, and a strange fluctuation emanates from the surface of the vortex. Could this vortex be the exit? Liu Feng looked around and saw that, apart from this place, it seemed that there were forests all around, with no end in sight. Should we go in or not? Wanner's expression was also somewhat hesitant. This vortex might not be the exit, but a passage to hell. At this moment, she needed to make a difficult choice. Go in. Liu Feng nodded without hesitation. This forest had no end in sight, and if one wandered around in it, who knew when they would be able to get out? And once they left, it was another matter whether they could even get back. This is not the time to hesitate. Since there is a passage ahead, it means there is a chance to get out. Follow me. Liu Feng walked ahead and followed the passage to the vortex. Without hesitation, he entered the black vortex. Behind her, Wanner gritted her teeth, her face showing struggle, but in the end she sighed and murmured, Fine, I'll trust you this once. With that, she stepped into the whirlpool and disappeared. The Marquis of Kinglin's residence. In the hall, 2 figures stood, namely Liu Tianchen and Bai Guobing. You mean Fomer only left a note and went to the Black Cloud Wilderness alone? Liu Tianchen frowned and suddenly asked. Bai Guobing nodded. That's right. It's been almost half a month since the young master left Xianzhou Academy. Upon hearing this, Liu Tianchen frowned even more deeply. He was very puzzled. That kid clearly didn't know anything, so what was he doing running off to the Black Cloud Wilderness? That place was where adventurers who lived on the edge of death stayed. Someone who couldn't cultivate would have no chance of survival there. Just as Liu Tianchen was pondering, Bai Guobing interrupted him. After seeing this news, I set off for Black Cloud Wilderness. Sure enough, I found out about the young master in Black Stone Town. Oh! Liu Tianchen's expression changed. He had initially thought that Liu Feng was just making up an excuse to go out and fool around, but he didn't expect that the kid had actually gone to the Black Cloud Wilderness, which really surprised him. However, he calmed down after a moment and asked, "What did you find out?" Actually, he really hoped that Liu Feng was just out fooling around, so that at least he wouldn't encounter any danger. But if he went to the Black Cloud Wilderness, it was hard to say whether he could survive. The innkeeper in Blackrock Town told me that the young master stayed there for one night, but that day, it said that he was targeted by Jing Tu, the ghost hand of Blackrock Town. According to the information I've gathered, this ghost hand Jing Tu is a third-level cultivator who specializes in murder and robbery, committing crimes in several counties of Xianzhou. Many family members have fallen victim to his cruelty, including some from powerful families. Enough! Upon hearing this, Liu Tianchen's face turned extremely gloomy, his eyes revealing a tangible killing intent, his eyes gradually turning blood red, and he was like a wild beast about to go berserk, as if he would go berserk at any moment. You mean, Foma has already been killed by that ghost Hanjing too? Liu Tianchen's eyes almost spit fire. He only had one son, and he never expected that he would be killed by an adventurer. Suddenly, he felt an urge to slaughter Blackstone Town. Seeing this, Bai Guobing knew something was wrong and quickly stepped forward, saying, "Wait, Lord Marquis, don't panic. I didn't say that the young master was killed by Jing Tuesday. On the contrary, it's possible that the young master killed Jing Tuesday." Upon hearing the first half of the sentence, Liu Tianchen was quite pleased, but upon hearing the second half, his expression immediately turned cold, and he said in a chilling voice, "Are you joking? How can someone who cannot cultivate at all kill Jing Tu, a third-level cultivator? Even if a third-tier expert stands still and lets a mortal cut him down, he cannot be killed. This is because once you enter the first tier, you will have true qi protecting your body, which can easily resist the damage from ordinary weapons. Moreover, Jing Tu has already reached the third tier. Of course, Jing Tu's true cultivation level has reached the fourth tier." Bai Guobing couldn't help but smile bitterly, but he still forced himself to say, "My lord, please let me finish." Although Jing Tu's gang was planning to target the young master, they found the bodies of Jing Tu and his men in the wilderness outside Blackstone Town just the next day. "What, dead?" Liu Tianchen looked slightly surprised, but the coldness on his face had not subsided at all. He said in a deep voice, "Then it is very likely that he was killed by an expert. Perhaps Fenger had already been poisoned by them before that." "Absolutely impossible," Bai Guobing said with a smile. "Because adventurers saw that the young master and another boy entered the depths of the Black Cloud Wilderness together. Their destination seemed to be a place called Starry Ancient City." Starry Ancient City? A strange light flashed in Liu Tianchen's eyes. He was quite familiar with this Black Cloud Wilderness. When did such an ancient city appear here? Chapter 20: A Step-by-Step Thrill. When Liu Feng opened his eyes again, the first thing he saw was a dilapidated dome, covered in dust and cobwebs, looking very run-down. Slowly getting up from the ground, Liu Feng looked around and saw that everything was in ruins. The buildings were leaning to one side, and in some places, the ground had collapsed, filled with black, unfathomable energy. Just looking at it made one dizzy. He wondered what had happened here. For some reason, from the moment he regained consciousness, he could vaguely sense an evil aura surrounding him, lingering throughout the entire palace. It seems this is the interior of the palace. Liu Feng frowned. As he entered the palace, his unease did not subside. Instead, it grew stronger. At this moment, Wanner, who had been sleeping soundly, also woke up. After opening her sleepy eyes, she glanced around and her expression changed slightly. "What a strange place. It seems you've realized this too. We can't stay here any longer. We need to find an exit immediately." Having said that, Liu Feng did not linger any longer and walked along the main road in front of him towards the inner perimeter of the palace. Wana nodded, quickly dusted herself off, and followed. Deep within the palace, following the walkable path, the two continued forward, passing numerous buildings, until they arrived at a spacious corridor. On the walls on both sides of the corridor are engraved portraits of various shapes and sizes, which are quite strange. They are all ferocious monsters. Whether it is because they are too realistic or something else, the eyes of the monsters seem to blink, and their expressions are extremely lifelike. Be careful. Liu Feng walked at the front, raising his mental power to the limit. He seemed to be able to faintly sense a faint aura around him, but upon closer inspection, he could not find anything. His heart sank slightly. Liu Feng, I think we should hurry up and leave. I have a feeling that these monsters are like they're alive, and they're staring at me the whole time. Wanner followed closely behind Liu Feng, looking nervous. Just as Liu Feng was about to offer some words of comfort, suddenly, a sharp beast claw suddenly emerged from the mural on the right side of the corridor, and then a dark shadow pounced out of the painting with lightning speed. Careful. Liu Feng's expression changed drastically, and he grabbed the girl and retreated hastily. The shadowy figure landed, and a lizard-like monster, 4 or 5 meters long and covered in sharp spikes, appeared before them. Before Liu Feng and his companion could even be shocked, the lizard-like monster appeared directly above the corridor, its huge tail sweeping out towards them. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. If it weren't for Liu Feng's strong mental power, he would probably have been ambushed by this monster and died on the spot. On the gallery next to it, the image of the lizard monster remained intact, only its eyes had lost their luster. Die! Liu Feng's eyes narrowed, and at the same moment the lizard monster appeared in the corridor. A flash of sword light swept past, piercing the monster's throat directly. Then, he kicked out, sending the lizard monster's massive body flying.
Bang!
The lizard-like monster slammed into the corridor wall, but in just an instant, its body underwent an astonishing transformation. Not only did no blood appear, but it gradually turned into wisps of black mist that quickly dispersed. Upon witnessing this bizarre scene, Liu Feng exclaimed in surprise, "This thing isn't a demonic beast." As the black mist spread rapidly, the monster patterns on the surrounding walls began to wriggle slightly, as if they would all come to life at any moment. Oh no, let's get out of here. Liu Feng's expression changed drastically. If all these demonic beasts crawled out, he would probably be no match for them no matter how strong he was. In the end, he would only be exhausted and trapped to death by the horde of demonic beasts. The two sprinted down the corridor at breakneck speed, while behind them came a series of angry roars that shook the entire corridor.
Whoosh!
After about the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, Liu Feng and his companion finally rushed out of the corridor. The moment all 5 of them had passed through, all the demonic beasts behind them were frozen in place. Then, each of them flashed with light and merged into the galleries on both sides, becoming one with the murals on the walls, as if they had never come out at all. Well enough. Panting heavily, Liu Feng glanced at Wana, who was covered in sweat. The girl was no longer as lively as usual. Her hair was disheveled, her face was very haggard, and she looked rather disheveled. I'm exhausted. Wanner plopped down on the ground, glancing back at the corridor with lingering fear. Only after confirming that the demonic beasts had all disappeared did she pick up on Liu Feng's words, looking at him with some surprise. How come you're completely unharmed? Along the way, although she encountered various dangers, she had a feeling that as long as Liu Feng was there, she could turn danger into safety and get through the crisis safely. This made her feel a strange feeling towards Liu Feng, which seemed to be a sense of security, but it also seemed not to be. If I were like you, would either of us be able to survive? Liu Feng shook his head. This ancient city was fraught with hidden dangers. If it were an ordinary person, they would have died in some nameless corner long ago. However, Wanner's feeling was right. If it weren't for Liu Feng, that freak, she wouldn't have been alive until now. Let's go. Every moment we stay increases the danger. Liu Feng turned his gaze forward. Not far away, directly opposite, the The passage seemed to be getting wider and wider, gradually becoming more open and bright. After crossing the passage, a spacious hall came into view, with several large, eerie black characters written prominently outside the door. Demon Palace. The palace was built to be extremely magnificent, exuding a cold and awe-inspiring presence. Its base was more than 10 times larger than that of an ordinary family's manor, and it stood dozens of feet tall. Truly a colossal structure. This should be the core of the palace. Liu Feng had never seen such a tall and majestic building before. It probably couldn't even compare to the imperial palaces and villas of the empire. Only the skyscrapers of his previous life could be compared to the grand hall in front of him. Are you sure you want to go in? Wanner's eyes flickered slightly. She could almost clearly see a faint aura of malevolence emanating from around the palace, which was extremely eerie. Is there any way back now? Even if it's a den of dragons and tigers inside, we have to go for it. If you don't want to go in, you can turn back. After saying that, Liu Feng stepped directly into the gate. That idiot. Wanner stomped her foot in anger. How could she go back now? Those demonic beasts alone were enough to tear her to shreds. On the contrary, following Liu Feng might give her a glimmer of hope. Upon entering the palace, Liu Feng immediately felt an evil aura surrounding him, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. Squeak. After the two entered, the door closed automatically, emitting a sound that seemed to come from the underworld. The palace was pitch black, so dark you couldn't see your hand in front of your face, but they had barely gotten their feet on the ground when— wow! The sound of flames burning suddenly rang out, and starting from where the two were, 2 rows of eerie blue flames lit up, clinging to the wall and stretching into the far distance. This fire, it feels a bit like corpse fire? Feeling the chilling aura emanating from the flames, Wanna couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. It's not just somewhat similar, it should be it. Liu Feng flicked his finger, and a wisp of azure light formed from wind elements swept to a flame, suddenly exploding and scattering dazzling light in all directions, illuminating the surrounding environment clearly. Against the wall were rows of withered skeletons, each with a hole in its head from which a faint, eerie flame emanated and burned steadily. Ah! Wanna was startled by the sudden and terrifying sight. Her pretty face turned pale, and she gripped Liu Feng's sleeve tightly with both hands. Truly a colossal structure. This should be the core of the palace. Liu Feng had never seen such a tall and majestic building before. It probably couldn't even compare to the imperial palaces and villas of the empire. Only the skyscrapers of his previous life could be compared to the grand hall in front of him. Are you sure you want to go in? Wanner's eyes flickered slightly. She could almost clearly see a faint aura of malevolence emanating from around the palace, which was extremely eerie. Is there any way back now? Even if it's a den of dragons and tigers inside, we have to go for it. If you don't want to go in, you can turn back. After saying that, Liu Feng stepped directly into the gate. That idiot. Wanner stomped her foot in anger. How could she go back now? Those demonic beasts alone were enough to tear her to shreds. On the contrary, following Liu Feng might give her a glimmer of hope. Upon entering the palace, Liu Feng immediately felt an evil aura surrounding him, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. Squeak. After the two entered, the door closed automatically, emitting a sound that seemed to come from the underworld. The palace was pitch black, so dark you couldn't see your hand in front of your face, but they had barely gotten their feet on the ground when— wow! The sound of flames burning suddenly rang out, and starting from where the two were, 2 rows of eerie blue flames lit up, clinging to the wall and stretching into the far distance. This fire, it feels a bit like corpse fire? Feeling the chilling aura emanating from the flames, Wanna couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. It's not just somewhat similar, it should be it. Liu Feng flicked his finger, and a wisp of azure light formed from wind elements swept to a flame, suddenly exploding and scattering dazzling light in all directions, illuminating the surrounding environment clearly. Against the wall were rows of withered skeletons, each with a hole in its head from which a faint, eerie flame emanated and burned steadily. Ah! Juana was startled by the sudden and terrifying sight. Her pretty face turned pale, and she gripped Liu Feng's sleeve tightly with both hands. Chapter 21: Unleashing the Demon. Let's go inside. Liu Feng remained unfazed. Even the resurrected corpse demon could not stop him, so how could mere corpse fire frighten him? Having learned from the experience of the previous gallery, Liu Feng had no choice but to pay close attention to his surroundings and be prepared to fight back at any time. As the two ventured deeper, the demonic energy within the palace intensified, and gusts of evil wind blew from an unknown direction, causing the hairs on their bodies to stand on end involuntarily. There's a passage ahead. Liu Feng's eyes lit up slightly. At the end of the main hall, two forked paths appeared before the two. The two paths looked exactly the same, and both led to extremely deep and dark places, filled with eerie demonic energy. Which way should we go? Seeing two almost identical passages, Juana couldn't help but turn her gaze to Liu Feng. This way. Liu Feng pointed to the passage on the right. Although the two passages looked the same on the surface, he could sense that they were different through his mental power. The cold wind in the passage on the left carried a faint, hidden bloody smell, while the one on the right did not, only a strong sense of coldness. In comparison, Liu Feng still believed that the passage on the right was safer. Half an hour later, the long journey finally came to an end. Along the way, there were some deadly hidden traps and poisonous insects and beasts, but fortunately, Liu Feng was focused enough to always spot them in time. So far, the two of them had only suffered minor injuries and were not seriously hurt. This path actually leads underground. Juana's expression changed. The passage extended underground, which meant that if she wanted to continue forward, she would have to go deep underground. Liu Feng wasn't too surprised. Judging from the chilling aura he'd just sensed, he figured it might be coming from underground, and sure enough, it was. At the end of the passage, a spacious basement came into view. In the center of the stone chamber, Liu Feng was surprised to see a black stone platform. The platform's black color was not unusual, but what surprised him was the stone platform was covered with all sorts of obscure and incomprehensible strange runes. The various patterns were so complex that an ordinary person would feel dizzy and dare not look at it a second time. Even though Liu Feng was an amateur, he could see that this formation was extraordinary. The energy fluctuations on it alone could probably kill the two of them in an instant. However, what attracted Liu Feng's attention even more was the pale golden longsword stuck in the center of the formation. Although there was no fluctuation on the sword, he was certain that this sword was definitely not an ordinary item. Could this sword be the key element of this formation? Liu Feng frowned. Such a powerful formation actually needed a sword as the eye of a needle. What exactly was the purpose of this formation? There doesn't seem to be an exit around here. Juana looked around. The surroundings were completely sealed off, without a single ray of light. It was only thanks to the light emitted by this formation that they were not plunged into darkness. Liu Feng's eyes flickered, and he hesitated for a moment before saying, I think the secret of this ancient city may very well lie in the formation here. From the initial labyrinthine passages, through the endless forest on the second level, to this eerie palace, Liu Feng doubted the reality of these things. Perhaps everything here was an illusion? Could the black array in front of us be the one controlling this illusion? Then you want to break the formation? Juana asked, somewhat surprised. Upon hearing this, Liu Feng rolled his eyes at her. I don't know anything about breaking formations. I just want to try taking this sword. You accepted it? Juana was also shocked by Liu Feng's bold idea. Without further hesitation, Liu Feng leaped onto the complex array, then suddenly reached out with his right hand and gripped the hilt of the golden sword tightly.
Drink.
With his other hand gripping the hilt, the pale gold longsword suddenly emitted a sword hum and began to tremble as Liu Feng exerted all his strength. The next moment, the golden light became extremely dazzling, and the dust covering its surface was completely shaken away, revealing the two golden characters, Slay the Demon, an inch above the sword. The moment Liu Feng drew his sword, a vast scene suddenly flashed into his mind. An endless wilderness. A middle-aged man in white robes stood floating in the air, his clothes fluttering. Opposite him was a sinister black shadow. From beneath the loose black robe, thick, viscous black energy continuously seeped out. At the same time, four blood-red skulls floated around him, looking extremely terrifying. Immediately afterwards, the two engaged in an earth-shattering battle. The earth cracked, smoke billowed, the wind and clouds shifted, and the sun and moon lost their light. In the end, the middle-aged man in white was unable to completely kill the dark figure. He could only set up an array and use the divine sword in his hand as the array's core to suppress the dark figure in the wilderness. The triple illusion array and the triple malevolent array firmly defended this formation at the bottom of the wilderness, suppressing that dark figure for countless years. As the entire starry ancient city appeared in Liu Feng's mind, this scene suddenly disappeared, and the next moment, the boy opened his eyes. Oops. Liu Feng's expression changed drastically. This starry ancient city was not a place to hide treasures. It was clearly a place of great danger. Under this formation, there was actually a peerless ferocious demon being suppressed, and the key item for suppressing this peerless ferocious demon, the golden sword, had already been pulled out by him. Boom. The moment the sword was drawn, the surrounding world began to shake violently. The walls around them rapidly shattered into fragments and vanished without a trace. In the end, not only did the palace crumble to dust, but the entire ancient city disappeared at a visible speed. The forest vanished, the labyrinth collapsed, and finally, all that remained before Liu Feng and his companion was a desolate wasteland stretching as far as the eye could see. At the same time, many adventurers also appeared in the wilderness. What's going on? Aren't I in the maze? Yes, I was just in the forest. How did I suddenly come out? Ignoring the adventurers, Liu Feng grabbed Wanner's hand and fled at top speed, not daring to stop for even a moment. Wanner couldn't keep up with that speed at all. She felt like she was about to be blown away. She couldn't help but shout, "Slow down. Why are you running so fast? Shut up if you want to live." Liu Feng glared at the other party fiercely. Just thinking about that terrifying black figure made him feel uneasy. With the core of the formation broken, the formation probably wouldn't last long, and would be broken soon. Boom. As Liu Feng expected, behind him, in the area of Xingyao Ancient City, an astonishing black light shot into the sky, reaching straight into the clouds. This amazing scene could be seen for dozens of miles, and the earth trembled at this moment. Blackstone Town. The nearby residents and adventurers were all alarmed, staring in shock at the incredibly awe-inspiring scene in the distance, and discussing it animatedly. At that moment, a pale-faced, mysterious man emerged from the restaurant, his entire body shrouded in a blood-red robe. Upon seeing this scene, a sinister smile crept across his lips, and then, leaving only a bloody shadow, he vanished silently into the crowd. In the underground chamber, on the black stone platform, bursts of intense black light erupted from the complex runes, rapidly eroding the light patterns on the array. Boom! A deep rumble resounded, and the black light erupted more and more violently. The rumble grew more frequent and urgent. Boom! 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 A series of sounds, like the beating of drums, rang out continuously, and the formation trembled violently. Snap! The black stone platform suddenly cracked open, revealing 3 fissures. Chapter 22: The Birth of the Ghost King. After the stone platform cracked, the light of the formation dimmed at a visible speed, and more cracks began to appear. It looked like it was about to explode at any moment. Boom! With a deafening explosion, the stone platform shattered, the formation broke, and then a clearly visible spatial ripple spread out in all directions from the point of explosion. While the group of adventurers on the ground were still puzzled by the earlier tremor, they suddenly felt the earthquake tremble even more violently. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines and began to scatter in all directions. But only for a fleeting moment. Bang! The area within hundreds of meters around it was completely shattered, and a powerful storm suddenly swept out from underground. Whoa! A deep roar came from underground. Where the complex formation had been, space ruptured, revealing a large gap, from which a figure shrouded in black light swiftly emerged. At the same time, a strong aura of bloodlust surged out from the original gap, instantly filling the entire world. The black-robed figure floated in the air. Beneath the black robe, only two eerie green eyes could be seen, which seemed to be two balls of will-o'-the-wisp burning. I have finally escaped. The black-robed monster's eyes were filled with wild joy as he looked at the desolate wilderness beneath his feet. After so many years, I have finally escaped the suppression of the heavenly sword old ghost and seen the light of day again. The black-robed figure watched the fleeing adventurers, a bloodthirsty glint in his eyes. With a flick of his sleeve, a thick black mist erupted, transforming into a black whirlwind at a visible speed, sweeping the fleeing adventurers into the sky. It's been 100 years since I've tasted flesh and blood. How I miss it, but you should feel honored to become my food. As the words fell, the adventurers in the air were all shredded to pieces, their blood and flesh converging into a crimson torrent that rushed toward the black-robed monster. Beneath the black robe, a ferocious green face emerged. He opened his blood-red maw and swallowed the torrent of blood into his belly, then wiped his mouth with great enjoyment, revealing a satisfied expression. In this whirlwind, all the adventurers around starry ancient city were wiped out at once. Except for Liu Feng, who had already run far away, everyone else had entered the belly of the black-robed monster. Whoosh! Just then, a blood-red shadow flew swiftly towards the man in black robes and finally stopped in front of him. It was the blood-red man from Blackstone Town. When he saw the hideous black-robed monster in midair, a look of wild joy appeared on his face. He knelt on one knee and said respectfully, "Congratulations, Lord Ghost King, on regaining your freedom." A strange look flashed across the black-robed man's face, then his eyes lit up. "You're a descendant of the Blood Demon?" "I am Lin Zhen. The Blood Demon is none other than your master." The man in the blood-red robe raised his head, his gaze fixed on the black shadow in midair. His heart was surging with excitement. Was this the Ghost King who had dominated the Snow Continent 100 years ago? There were probably more than a dozen sword sect masters who had been defeated by him. Later, it was only thanks to the intervention of the strongest sect on the Snow Continent, the Heavenly Sword Sect, that he was suppressed in the Black Cloud Wilderness. For a century, the Ghost King was suppressed, but his powerful subordinates kept trying to find ways to break the seal. However, the seal of the Heavenly Sword Sect was not so easy to break. It wasn't until a century later, when the power of the seal had weakened considerably, that an opportunity arose. The demon-slaying divine sword left behind by the Heavenly Sword Sect is a divine weapon that can restrain powerful evil cultivators. The powerful members of the Ghost King lineage cannot even touch it. That's why he released the news of Starry Ancient City a year ago, along with the treasures circulating there and the secrets of the Star Palace. All of this was fabricated and planned by him, just to get those adventurers to rescue the Ghost King. His goal was achieved at this moment. The Ghost King nodded in satisfaction. "Well done. I was able to escape this time entirely thanks to your help. Don't worry, I will not treat you unfairly. Once we are in a safe place, I will teach you the 9 Revolutions Ghost God technique." "Thank you, Ghost King." A look of wild joy flashed in Lin Zhen's eyes. The 9 Revolutions Ghost God technique was the Ghost King's signature skill, and its grade had reached the high level of the Earth rank. If he could learn it, it would not be impossible for him to become a sword master in the future. Let's go. Once I've recovered my strength, I'll settle accounts with that old devil, Heavenly Sword. A fierce glint flashed in the Ghost King's eyes. He had been imprisoned underground for 100 years. If this debt wasn't settled, how could he vent his resentment of the past 100 years? Ghost King, you may not know this, but the Heavenly Sword Sect is dead. Now there are 2 great empires on the Snow Continent. The strongest person in the Northern Snow Empire is Luo Zhujianzong, a disciple of the Heavenly Sword Sect. Lin Zhen explained. What? The Ghost King's ugly face twitched, his expression turning somewhat gloomy. He then chuckled coldly. In that case, we'll have to settle this score with his disciple. Let's go. Having said that, he grabbed Lin Zhen from the ground and transformed into a streak of light, disappearing into the horizon. Blackstone Town. Two figures fled into the town with lightning speed, looking extremely disheveled. They were Liu Feng and Wanner. As soon as they stopped, Liu Feng shouted to the stable owner, "Boss, give us 2 fast horses, the best and fastest ones. We're in a hurry to get going." What, you're still going to run? Wanner looked at Liu Feng in disbelief. They had just run for dozens of miles and almost exhausted her. When she heard Liu Feng say that they still had to travel, she immediately became reluctant. Liu Feng frowned. You don't know what kind of person is being suppressed underground, which is why you say such things. If you saw it like I do, you would definitely run faster than me. Upon hearing this, Wanner's expression changed, and she couldn't help but ask, who is being suppressed? I don't know, I've never seen anyone like this before. He looks like a devil. Liu Feng was certain that the two were at least sword sect experts, because sword masters could not float in the air. Only sword sect experts could fly. A devil. Wanner looked thoughtful, but before she could think about it, Liu Feng roughly lifted her onto his horse and rode away. After traveling several dozen miles, the two arrived at a fork in the road. Put me down. Liu Feng was about to head towards Kanglin County when Wanner's sudden question made him tighten the reins. He asked curiously, "What's wrong?" After jumping off her horse, Wanner looked at Liu Feng with complicated emotions, gritted her teeth, and said, "I have to go home too." Upon hearing this, Liu Feng was somewhat surprised, but after thinking about it, he felt it made sense. He had been away for so long, and if he wanted to go home, others would naturally want to go home too. He immediately clasped his hands slightly to the girl and said, "Take care." After saying that, he turned his horse around. "Wait a minute," Wanner said, somewhat speechless at Liu Feng's sudden attempt to leave. Liu Feng asked in confusion, "Is there anything else?" "Here you go," Wanner said, taking out a purple jade pendant from her bosom and handing it to Liu Feng. "If you ever need anything in the future, you can take this jade pendant to the Luchuan Empire to find me. However, it's best not to let the royal family of the Northern Snow Empire discover this jade pendant." After saying that, the girl mounted another horse and gradually disappeared from sight. "You absolutely have to come." After walking several dozen meters away, Wanner turned back and shouted at Liu Feng before patting her horse's back and disappearing from sight. Liu Feng lowered his head and played with the jade pendant in his hand. Upon closer inspection, he discovered that the jade pendant was engraved with a pattern of a demonic beast, which resembled neither a dragon nor a python, and he had never seen it before. There were countless monsters in the world that he had never seen before, so Liu Feng didn't pay much attention to the patterns on the jade pendant. However, he guessed that it was probably the symbol of a powerful family, and that family was likely Wanner's family. As for Wanner being from the Luchuan Empire, Liu Feng didn't care much. After all, he came from the 21st century, and the hatred between the two empires was none of his business. After tossing the jade pendant into his void ring, Liu Feng sped away, leaving only billowing dust rising on the main road. Chapter 23: The Battle of Successors. The Marquis of Kanglin's residence. Inside the hall, Liu Tianchen paced back and forth anxiously, constantly looking towards the door as if waiting for someone. "My lord." Not long after, a loud shout came from outside the door, and then a figure rushed in. It was Bai Guobing. "You're back." Liu Tianchen's face lit up with joy. He walked up to Bai Guobing in a few steps and asked eagerly, "How did it go? How did the investigation go?" These days, he hasn't slept well for several days in a row. The reason is that there's been no news from Liu Feng for so long. If he wasn't afraid of Murong finding out, he would have gone to the Black Cloud Wilderness himself long ago. Helpless, he sent Bai Guobing on his swift steed to go there for him. "Let me have a sip of water first." Bai Guobing picked up the teapot and gulped down the tea. He had been traveling a long way and, after finding out the information, rushed back overnight to report the news without getting much rest. I've heard two pieces of news along the way. One is good news, and the other is bad news. Which would you like to hear first, my lord? Bai Guobing didn't rush to report, but instead kept everyone in suspense. Upon hearing this, Lu Tianchen felt an urge to slap the other person to death, but considering who would report the news if he did, he suppressed the urge and said with a twitch of his lips, "Let's start with the bad news." Bai Guobing nodded. "The bad news is this. When I entered the Black Cloud Wilderness yesterday, I suddenly encountered a strange phenomenon. In the center of the wilderness, a strong energy fluctuation erupted. After inquiring, I learned that a terrible accident had occurred in the wilderness. Most of those who went to Star Glory Ancient City to search for treasures died in this incident." What? Lu Tianchen's face immediately turned extremely ugly, and he was almost about to explode. Liu Feng was his only son. Bai Guobing quickly said, "Don't worry, there's more good news." "What other good news is there?" Lu Tianchen's face was gloomy. He had already heard the worst news, so what good news could there be? However, before Bai Guobing could speak, a hurried footstep sounded outside the door, and the next moment, a white figure appeared in the doorway. When Lu Tianchen saw the white figure, his expression froze instantly, then turned into a look of great joy. Bai Guobing shrugged helplessly. "That's the good news." The white figure was none other than Liu Feng, who had rushed back from the Black Cloud Wilderness. He happened to meet Bai Guobing outside the county town, which is why they returned to the county marquis's mansion together. "You brat, you dare come back? Aren't you afraid I'll cripple you?" Lu Tianchen stormed up to Liu Feng, startling the boy. Before he could react, he was tightly embraced by a pair of large, strong hands. Liu Feng secretly breathed a sigh of relief, feeling fortunate that Lu Tianchen wouldn't dare to use excessive force against him again, having learned from his previous experience. "Kid, old Bai just said that everyone who went to Starshine Ancient City to search for treasure died. How come you? Also, why did you go to Black Cloud Wilderness?" Lu Tianchen had many questions about Liu Feng's series of strange behaviors and experiences. Putting aside how Liu Feng survived, his motives for going to the Black Cloud Wilderness were unimaginable. Liu Feng smiled faintly and said, "I went there to search for treasure, of course. As for how I got back, I guess I was just lucky." "Treasure hunting? Luck." Lu Tianchen naturally didn't believe these reasons. He first gave Bai Guobing a wink, and the latter understood. He then bowed to the two of them and left the hall. After Bai Guobing walked out of the hall, Lu Tianchen said slowly, "Now you can talk, right?" Liu Feng nodded. It wasn't that he doubted Bai Guobing, but he genuinely didn't want more people to know that he could cultivate. After all, the more people who knew, the greater the danger. He didn't even want to tell Lu Tianchen, but since the other party insisted on asking, there was no need to hide it. After all, he was his father and would definitely not harm him. "Father, you must see this carefully." A smile curved Liu Feng's lips as he quickly brought his middle and index fingers together to form a sword-like gesture, poised to strike. He was very familiar with the sword pointing at Lu Tianchen, but he was very puzzled as to why Liu Feng. Then his eyes lit up. Could it be? With a sharp look in his eyes, Liu Feng gave a command, and a sword aura slashed out, cleaving the table in front of him in two. "What?" Lu Tianchen jumped up almost simultaneously, staring in disbelief at the scene before him, rubbing his eyes hard as if he couldn't believe it was real. You can cultivate?" Lu Tianchen uttered "you" twice, looking at Liu Feng with a ghost-like expression. But he regretted it as soon as he finished speaking. Who else could be but a swordsman who could cause such great destruction with a sword finger? Mortals could never launch such an attack. Liu Feng shrugged helplessly. "I only made a small breakthrough not long ago." "What level are you at?" Lu Tianchen asked excitedly, his eyes filled with a hint of hope. "Just reached the second tier." "Good." Lu Tianchen slapped his thigh, his face filled with ecstatic joy. "How long has it been?" "It's been less than 2 months since this kid left home. He's already advanced 2 levels in such a short time. This is no good for nothing. He's clearly a cultivation genius." Haha, thank God. This news undoubtedly greatly excited Liu Tianchen. His son would no longer have to bear the reputation of being a good-for-nothing, and he would no longer feel ashamed in front of his colleagues. His Liu family still had hope of rising again. Tomorrow I plan to discuss something with my second uncle and the others to see if I can quell the struggle for the position of family head through my own means. Just as Liu Tianchen was in high spirits, Liu Feng suddenly blurted out the sentence. As soon as he finished speaking, the smile on Liu Tianchen's face disappeared, and he said coldly, "What's there to discuss with him? The second brother has been coveting the position of family head for a long time. Do you think he will give up just because of your words?" Liu Feng shook his head, a glint of light flashing in his eyes. "No, he will agree. I will challenge Liu Qingxue to a duel. The winner will become the heir of the Liu family, and the loser will declare eternal loyalty to the other." "What? Are you crazy?" Liu Tianchen's expression changed. He thought Liu Feng was going to say something useless to his second brother, but it turned out to be such an absurd idea. It would be strange if the other party didn't agree to such a good thing that was offered to them. "I know how you feel right now, eager to prove your abilities, but Liu Qingxue recently broke through to the 5th rank. The gap between you and her is too big, and you have no hope of winning." Liu Feng couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that his father didn't believe in his strength. But after thinking about it, he felt relieved. Probably no one would believe that a second-tier swordsman, who is known as a good-for-nothing, could defeat a 5th-tier genius swordsman. I am 100% confident. Not wanting to explain any further, Liu Feng looked directly at Liu Tianchen. 2 months ago, Liu Tianchen would probably have taken that statement as a joke. But now, he doesn't entirely believe it anymore, because Liu Feng is very different now. For some reason, even he has started to believe it. Liu Tianchen's eyes showed a thoughtful expression, then he turned around and walked directly out the door. "Come with me." The middle-aged man in fine clothes is Long Xian, the head of the Long family, one of the 3 major families in Kanglin County. The Long family's main strength lies in business, and they are well known throughout Xianzhou Prefecture. They rank first among the 3 major families in terms of both reputation and strength. Long Xian himself is also a powerful swordsman, and his words carry great weight in Kanglin County. Therefore, Liu Tianchen appointed him as the referee for this competition. Of course, more importantly, Long Xian and Liu Tianchen have a good relationship, unlike the other 2 major families, who each have their own ulterior motives and secretly collude with Liu Yuanba. Thinking of this, Liu Tianchen couldn't help but look in one direction. At this moment, on the other side of the VIP section, Liu Yuanba was talking with 2 middle-aged men who were the heads of the other 2 major families. Seeing this, Liu Tianchen couldn't help but shake his head. His second brother was really going to great lengths to compete for the title of Marquis. The time for the start of the competition was drawing ever closer, but Liu Feng had yet to appear. This kid, did he oversleep? Liu Tianchen's face was grim. He knew all too well how unreliable Liu Feng was. However, this wait did not last long. Outside the training ground, a black rapidly approached, which was none other than Liu Feng rushing towards them. "They're finally here." Liu Tianchen's eyes lit up. Long Xian followed Liu Tianchen's gaze and saw Liu Feng's figure. After a closer look, he said with doubt, "It seems that the rumors cannot be believed entirely. This boy is full of energy and spirit, clearly already at the 2nd level of cultivation, just 1 step away from stepping into the 3rd level. He doesn't seem like someone who cannot cultivate." Norong Wan, who was next to Liu Tianchen, also smiled and said, "To be honest, even we parents are surprised. Just over a month ago, he didn't even know what cultivation was." "What?" Long Xian's face showed shock. To go from beginner to 2nd level in just over a month was already considered incredibly fast. For most people, it would take several months just to get to the beginner level, let alone breakthrough. If that's the case, then Liu Feng is probably not a good-for-nothing, but rather a genius. This competition is not simple. I'll wait and see. In the VIP section, Liu Yuanba also noticed Liu Feng's cultivation level. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. He sneered, I didn't expect that after only 2 months, this piece of trash can start cultivating. But unfortunately, this level of cultivation is not worth mentioning at all. Liu Feng seemed to notice that someone was watching him and looked towards the VIP seats, where he caught a glimpse of Liu Yuanba's cold face, which also carried a hint of mockery. Faced with this gaze, Liu Feng chose to ignore it. Instead, he curled up the corner of his mouth and made a murderous gesture at Liu Yuanba, full of provocation. "You brat, are you looking for death?" Seeing that a piece of trash dared to provoke him, Liu Yuanba was furious and had an instant urge to rush down and cripple Liu Feng. However, he was not stupid after all, and he suppressed his anger and said to Liu Qingxue beside him in a deep voice, "Don't hold back later. Cripple this kid's cultivation, and then break every bone in his body. I want him to taste the feeling of being worse than dead." Hearing these vicious words, even Liu Qingxue felt a chill run down her spine. Her brows furrowed tightly. This was far too cruel. After all, Liu Feng was her cousin. Just then, Long Xian's powerful voice rang out from the VIP seats. "The time has come. As the referee of this competition, I hereby officially announce that the battle for the Liu family's heir has now begun." Chapter 20 For the third sword transforms into nothingness. The Liu family compound. Night fell, and the air was cool and refreshing. On an open space about 100 meters in diameter, two figures stood about 20 paces apart. They were Liu Tianchen and his son Liu Feng. Liu Tianchen stood with his hands behind his back and said calmly, "Make your move." He summoned Liu Feng here mainly to see what level of strength the other party had reached and whether he was capable of fighting Liu Qingxue. Of course, everything would be clear after they had exchanged blows. "Then you'd better be careful, father." Liu Feng took out the demon-slaying sword, tightened his grip on the hilt with his right hand, and a faint blue aura swirled around the sword, which was the power of the wind element. This sword strike is the Gale sword. With a light touch of his feet on the ground, Liu Feng shot out like an arrow. In the void, the sword light flashed past at an incredible speed. A strange light flashed in Liu Tianchen's eyes, but although he looked slightly surprised, he still easily used 2 fingers to release a sword aura that struck the high-speed demon-slaying sword. Clang! Due to such strong interference, the trajectory of the sword blade immediately deviated, grazing past Liu Tianchen's face. The ultimate move was easily broken, and Liu Feng was not surprised at all. After all, Liu Tianchen was a top-level swordsman, and the two were not on the same level. This is the Phantom Sword. Liu Feng's sword stance changed, and with a flick of his long sword, layers of sword shadows spread out. The sword shadows were both real and illusory, moving with the wind under Liu Feng's full power, completely sealing off Liu Tianchen's escape routes. Seeing this, Liu Tianchen seemed to smile, and then disappeared with a whoosh. The next moment, he had escaped the attack range of the Phantom Sword, as if he had evaporated from the ground. Pushing his mental power to its limit, Liu Feng suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. As he turned around, a gleaming long sword was already pointed at his neck. The Liu family's fast sword technique, following the swift wind and phantom moves, is formless. You must be able to transform into formless form in order to comprehend the true fast sword technique. One character after another entered Liu Feng's mind like a savior, seemingly transforming into figures that began to play out in his mind. "I will grant your request, but the outcome is not as simple as you think." Liu Tianchen gave Liu Feng a complicated look, then turned and left, leaving only a thin, young figure in the large courtyard, still deep in thought. Walking west along the Marquis' mansion, there is a lotus lake that separates the 2 building complexes of the mansion. This is the West Garden, where the second branch of the Liu family lives. The West Garden is usually quite quiet, but tonight it is brightly lit. In the largest building in Xiyuan, 2 figures stood prominently under the lights. "Qingxue, this is a golden opportunity that has come knocking on your door. Whether you can become the heir to the family head depends on your performance tomorrow." The speaker was a burly man with a commanding presence. His eyes were deep and unreadable, yet an aura of dominance emanated from him, inspiring fear in those around him. This man was none other than Liu Yuanba, the head of the second branch of the family. The girl in purple opposite him was none other than Liu Qingxue. She frowned, a hint of surprise in her eyes. When she heard Liu Tianchen propose to decide the position of family head through a duel, she was initially overjoyed, but then felt a sense of confusion. Liu Tianchen was always cautious in his actions, so why would he make such a decision? Could there be some kind of conspiracy? There's no need to be afraid of any conspiracy, Liu Yuanba sneered, then continued, "Don't worry, I've already sent people to inform the other major families in Kanglin County about tomorrow's challenge. The heads of the major families will all come to witness the ceremony. At that time, Liu Tianchen won't be able to do whatever he wants." Upon hearing this, Liu Qingxue nodded. That would be best. Immediately, a hint of coldness flashed in her eyes. How could Liu Feng, that good-for-nothing, possibly be her match? With the Liu family's capabilities, one night was neither a long nor a short time. After one night, the news of the challenge spread throughout the entire Kanglin County. The next day, the grand training ground of Kanglin County was bustling with activity. Almost all the servants and powerful figures who were affiliated with the Liu family came to watch the clan competition. In addition, the patriarchs of the other 3 major families in Kanglin County also came to witness the competition that would determine the future county marquee. In the high VIP section, Liu Tianchen and Murong Wan sat side by side. To Liu Tianchen's right was a middle-aged man in fine clothes who was slightly plump and exuded an invisible, intimidating aura. He was clearly a powerful and influential figure. "Lord Liu, may I ask which one is your son?" the richly dressed middle-aged man asked with a smile. Liu Tianchen looked around but didn't see Liu Feng. He shook his head and said, "That kid hasn't arrived yet." He couldn't help but wonder where the kid had gone. The competition was about to start, and he still hadn't seen him. Chapter 25: The relationship between fast and slow. As Long Xian finished speaking, a loud boom erupted on the training ground, and 2 figures rushed to the center of the field, standing 15 steps apart. Liu Qingxue looked Liu Feng up and down and said, "I didn't expect that in less than 2 months, Brother Feng. You have actually cultivated to the 2nd level. This is truly a cause for celebration." Just the last time they met, Liu Feng was just an ordinary person who was almost killed by Liu Tianchen with a single palm strike. In just 2 months, the other party's cultivation level had already reached the 2nd level, which was much faster than hers had been. When Liu Feng first saw the girl in front of him, he felt a flutter of emotion, but he quickly suppressed it, and the next moment, a mocking smile appeared on his lips. "What? You should be very disappointed to see me like this, right?" "Brother Feng," Liu Qingxue wanted to continue speaking. "Shut up." Having already seen through the true colors of this father and daughter, Liu Feng felt only disgust upon hearing their form of address and coldly interrupted them. Upon hearing this cold shout, Liu Qingxue's pretty face quickly darkened, and she said in an icy voice, "Humph, do you think you can pose a threat to me with your mere 2nd-tier cultivation? Let me tell you, in my eyes, a 2nd-tier swordsman is no different from an ordinary person. If you admit defeat now, you can avoid physical pain." She had intended to soften Liu Feng's heart through psychological warfare, hoping to win without a fight, or at least lower his morale. However, she did not expect Liu Feng to become so tough, which prevented her from saying the long speech she had prepared, and she felt extremely annoyed. Liu Feng smiled indifferently. "Have you said enough? Can we begin? You will regret not heeding my advice." As soon as she finished speaking, Liu Qingxue appeared 5 steps in front of Liu Feng like a wisp of green smoke. With a casual flick of her long sword, it trembled violently, and bursts of dazzling, firework-like sword light burst from the tip, enveloping the area in front of her. As expected of a genius swordsman, Liu Qingxue's swordsmanship was extremely skillful. However, it aroused Liu Feng's fighting spirit. He drew his demon-slaying sword and countered at an even faster speed, unleashing dozens of sword shadows in an instant, making it difficult to distinguish the real from the fake. The phantom sword can actually be this sharp? A look of surprise flashed in Liu Qingxue's beautiful eyes. With a single swing of her sword, she created dozens of afterimages, something even she couldn't do. However, she didn't take this offensive seriously. Ding 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 ding. The two swords clashed together, sparking dazzling flames that obscured the figures of the two men, leaving only scattered sparks. 2 years ago, Liu Qingxue became famous throughout Kanglan County for her swordsmanship. In the past 2 years, her swordsmanship has improved by leaps and bounds. Now, when she unleashes her full power, the trajectory of her sword is no longer visible to the naked eye. It is like lightning in the sky or starlight in the night, flashing and leaping endlessly. Previously, Liu Qin was unable to cultivate and was called a waste or a good-for-nothing. However, after Liu Feng's soul from another world possessed his body, his mental strength reached 10 times that of an ordinary person. Later, he even had an unexpected and extraordinary encounter, thus completely shedding the name of a waste and becoming a monstrous existence. Although his sword moves were not as flashy as his opponents, Liu Feng's advantage lay in his swordsmanship. Each move flowed smoothly and without any hindrance. Coupled with his extraordinary mental strength, he was often able to anticipate the opponent's moves and see through their weaknesses. The battle between the two was extremely fierce. Violent sword energy swept across the training ground, and their superb swordsmanship left the audience in awe. They stared intently, not blinking, afraid of missing the most exciting moment. In the audience, some veteran swordsmen gasped in astonishment. It's unbelievable. Are they still 15 or 16-year-old boys? Especially that young man, he's only a second-tier swordsman. So why is his combat power so fierce? The younger generation surpasses the older generation. These two young people are both remarkable. It was worth coming here to see such a wonderful match. The crowd's murmurs were not loud, but every word reached Liu Yuanba's ears. Damn it! What happened to this kid? He's only at the second level of cultivation, yet he can fight Qingxue to a standstill. Liu Yuanba's face was gloomy. He had thought the competition would be one-sided, but it turned out like this, which almost made him vomit blood from anger. Bite! After the sword strike, the two separated, each taking a dozen steps back. So you only know the first 2 moves of the Liu family quick sword technique, Liu Qingxue said, her gaze fixed on Liu Feng, a faint smile playing on her lips. If that's all, then the battle ends here. Oh! Liu Feng raised an eyebrow, a hint of surprise flashing in his eyes. The confidence in the other person's eyes made him feel vaguely uneasy. In sight, Liu Qingxue slowly drew her long sword, which traced a semicircular arc in the air before swooping towards Liu Feng. What's going on? Liu Feng frowned. The opponent's sword style suddenly changed drastically from what it had been at the beginning, from swift to incredibly slow, and even his movement had slowed down considerably. Putting aside his doubts, Liu Feng charged out with his sword, the sword flashing like a swift wind. Bite! With a crisp metallic clang, Liu Feng was startled. For just a moment, the sword in his hand had almost slipped from his grasp. However, in the next few sword strikes, Liu Feng became increasingly alarmed because his opponent seemed to be able to see through his moves. Although his attacks were slow, they always hit the vital points precisely, not only breaking his offensive, but also generating considerable counterforce. Haha, Qingxue is using the slow sword technique, which is the nemesis of both the Gale sword and Phantom sword techniques. We're sure to win this time. In the VIP section, Liu Yuanba's face was full of smug smiles. On the other side, Liu Tianchen also looked worried, saying, "The worst thing has happened. I didn't expect Liu Qingxue to actually learn the slow sword technique. Although it's only the first 2 moves, it's enough. Next, we'll see if Fenger can master that move." After a few moves, Liu Feng was immediately at a disadvantage, but fortunately, with his strong perception, he dodged several dangerous attacks and barely managed to remain undefeated. Defeat! Without giving Liu Feng a chance to catch his breath, Liu Qingxue attacked with her sword. Seeing this, Liu Feng steeled his resolve, and a wisp of azure light burst forth from his body. Let's see if your slow sword technique is more powerful or my invisible sword is stronger. Whoosh! A man and a sword shot out straight out, incredibly fast. Puffed! Before she could react, Lu Qingshue's sword energy was broken, and in the next instant, her protective true energy also shattered. However, just as the sword light was about to pierce her body, a layer of glass-like precious light suddenly spread out on her purple dress, blocking most of Liu Feng's sword light. It's my second brother's armor, a mid-grade magic weapon called the glazed armor. Lu Tianchen was shocked and immediately stood up. His gaze turned icy as he looked at Lu Yuanba not far away. They've even resorted to using a mid-grade magic armor. It seems his second brother is truly going to any lengths to secure the position of family head for his daughter. Beside him, Long Xian also shook his head. The defense of the mid-grade treasure armor was too strong, and even a swordsman expert could not break through it. Liu Feng's strength had indeed surprised him, but winning was almost impossible. In the arena, Lu Qingshue's face was also slightly pale, and a trace of blood even flowed from the corner of her mouth. Although the armor blocked most of the impact, the invisible sword was too fast after all, and because it was caught off guard, she didn't even have time to react, let alone defend herself. Among the Liu family's two ultimate sword techniques, the slow sword technique can restrain the fast sword technique, but only the first two moves. As for the move Formless, only the last move of the slow sword technique, Supreme, can restrain it. However, the Supreme Sword is extremely difficult to comprehend, and no one in the entire Liu family has been able to comprehend it. You've angered me. This will only make your defeat worse. Lu Qingshue's eyes were filled with a chilling light. She was completely enraged. The proud woman had actually been injured by a good-for-nothing. This was even more painful than being slapped in the face. All the true energy in his body gathered on the long sword, creating intense friction on the blade and giving rise to a wondrous change. It seemed to blend with a sharp energy hidden within the blade, emitting an incomparably sharp aura. An astonishing aura emanated from Lu Qingxue. This sword strike was her full-force attack, and even a swordsman 1 or 2 levels higher than her would likely be defeated by it. Faced with this astonishing aura, Liu Feng remained motionless, but a chilling white light rapidly magnified in his pupils, eventually filling his entire eyes. Chapter 26: Snow God Guard. At that moment, Lu Qingxue felt as if the world around her had turned a deep white, and a strong sense of despair completely shattered her confidence, filling her with frustration and disappointment. In that instant, in Lu Qingshue's eyes, Liu Feng's body continued to grow taller, eventually reaching over 10 zhang in length. In front of this giant shadow, she herself became an insignificant and tiny person. On Liu Feng's face seemed to be a sneer, a mockery, and disdain. He stretched out a large hand from the void towards her, as if he would crush her in an instant. No, this isn't real. Lu Qingshue's will finally broke through the blockade of despair, but when she opened her eyes again, a pale golden sword was already pressed against her neck. You lost, Liu Feng said calmly. As despair enveloped Lu Qingxue, her all-out attack suddenly opened up a gap. Seizing this opportunity, Liu Feng easily broke through that sword and reversed the situation. How is that possible? Lu Qingshue's eyes were vacant, and she fell into a brief daze. She had never thought that she would fail, and that she would fail so miserably that she didn't even have the strength to fight back. Sheathing his long sword, Liu Feng looked at the distraught girl before him and shook his head. Sometimes, the more you try to get something, the less likely you are to get it. Desire has blinded you. In fact, many things are better left undone. As a swordsman, if you focus your attention on the position of a mere family head, you will never achieve anything great. Liu Feng had no interest in the position of family head. If Lu Qingshuo could repent, he might consider making her the successor to the family head, but now is far from the right time. I hope she'll come to her senses. Liu Feng sighed inwardly. In the VIP section, Long Xian gave Liu Feng a meaningful look, then cleared his throat, stood up and announced loudly, "This competition is now over. The winner is Liu Feng." As soon as he finished speaking, thunderous applause erupted from the stands. Apart from a few people with grim expressions, everyone else applauded sincerely and enthusiastically. After all, Liu Tianchen had a good reputation in Kanglan County, and the swordsmen and commoners who were watching were naturally happy to see Liu Feng win, even though his reputation hadn't been so good in the past. Damn it, how could Qingxue possibly lose? Liu Yuanba's face was extremely gloomy. Even he couldn't understand what happened in the final moments of the competition. Liu Qingxue seemed to have suddenly been bewitched and lost inexplicably. Beside him, the heads of the two families shook their heads and bowed to Liu Yuanba to take their leave. They had originally thought they could gain some benefits from Liu Yuanba, but now that he had lost the opportunity to gain control of the Liu family, he had clearly lost his usefulness, so there was no need to waste any more time on him. Despite Liu Yuanba's repeated attempts to persuade him to stay and his confident promise to reclaim the family headship, his words no longer held much weight. The two family heads were not fools. Their minds were no longer on how to help Liu Yuanba, but rather on how to cultivate a good relationship with Liu Tianchen. Two opportunistic bastards. Watching the two family heads leave, Liu Yuanba couldn't contain his anger. He snorted coldly and turned away. After the competition ended, Liu Tianchen slowly stood up, smiled slightly at the audience, clasped his hands, and said, "Thank you all for coming to witness the event. Next, my Liu family will hold a grand banquet, and I hope you will all do me the honor of attending." "All right, might as well eat it, but I'm afraid the Marquis might feel bad about it," a swordsman joked. Liu Tianchen laughed heartily. "Not at all. I'm just happy today. Everyone please eat to your heart's content." As everyone walked toward the banquet hall, two people in a corner of the training ground stood out. "Old Li, what do you think of this boy?" "Very good. If I'm not mistaken, at the very end, this boy must have unleashed a kind of artistic conception, a sword artistic conception with a hint of despair." Upon hearing this, the man's expression changed in surprise. Intent? That's something that all swordsmen dream of. It's said that only a few exceptionally talented swordsmen have the opportunity to comprehend it. I never expected that such a peerless genius could be born in this small Kanglan County. The white-robed elder named Li Lao smiled faintly. This trip was worthwhile. It seems necessary to have a good talk with Liu Feng. It's a real pity that such a talent is not being used by the Empire. You mean to make him? The white-robed elder nodded slightly. That's right. Since His Majesty has given me this power, I will naturally seek out true talents for the Empire. Let's go. The next moment, the mysterious two disappeared into the crowd, leaving no trace. Today's banquet was extremely large, with tables and chairs filling almost the entire courtyard of the Marquis's mansion. Among the guests, apart from a small number of prominent figures from Kanglan County, the majority were cultivators and ordinary people. By evening, the banquet was still going on, but most of the people were flushed and bleary-eyed from drinking. Liu Feng had planned to participate, but Liu Tianchen insisted on putting him at the same table as Long Xian's daughter, which was very awkward, and he could only barely manage to cope. At this moment, two people suddenly walked up to Liu Feng's side. They were the two mysterious people who had been in the corner of the training ground earlier that day. The white-robed old man smiled slightly, extended his palm in front of Liu Feng, and said, "Liu Feng, right? I am Li Daoxian. It's a pleasure to meet you. Hello." Although Liu Feng didn't recognize the person in front of him, he still stood up politely. After all, everyone who came today was a guest, and besides, the person had already extended their hand. You couldn't just ignore them, could you? "I have something important to discuss with you, young friend. May I speak with you in private?" Li Daoxian said with a smile. "Oh." A hint of surprise flashed across Liu Feng's eyes, and he was secretly puzzled. However, judging from the other party's expression, it didn't seem like he was joking, so his expression also became serious. "Please come this way." As he left, he glanced at Liu Tianchen's location, but when he saw the staggering figure, he shook his head. It seemed that calling his father was out of the question. The Liu family's living room. Liu Feng poured 2 cups of tea for the two of them, then sat down opposite them and asked with some doubt, "What do you two have to say? You can say it now." Li Daoxian took a sip of tea before turning his gaze to Liu Feng and slowly asked, "Do you know anything about the Snow God Guard?" "What? The Snow God Guard?" Liu Feng's expression changed. How could he be unfamiliar with this name? His parents had told him long before he went to Xianzhou Academy that there was a powerful and mysterious force in the northern Snow Empire, the Snow God Guard. The Snow God Guard was the most powerful force in the entire empire, composed entirely of cultivators, and it was said that only those at least at the level of a swordsman could join it. The Snow God Guards are directly under the command of the Emperor of the Empire, holding a prestigious and unique position. Because they are directly under the Emperor, the Snow God Guards hold a very special position. No one except the Emperor can interfere with the Snow God Guard's work, not even the Imperial Prime Minister or the Grand General. Liu Feng. Li Daoxian looked at Liu Feng. The Snow God Guard is the most powerful force in the entire empire, with members all over the empire. No family or organization in the world can compare with the Snow God Guard. Liu Feng nodded. That's true. The Snow God Guards are directly backed by the Emperor. Which family or power can fight against the royal family? In fact, although the Snow God Guards have a high status, they are very free. Unless they receive an emergency order, they can do whatever they want with their time. Moreover, becoming a Snow God Guard can bring blessings to the family and protect 3 generations of descendants. Liu Feng had also heard his father say that the Snow God Guards were indeed highly respected, and even their descendants benefited from them. "All your words are useless. I can never become a Snow God Guard," Liu Feng said with a smile. Li Daoxian looked at Liu Feng with a solemn expression. "I ask you, are you willing to become a Snow God Guard?" "Me?" Liu Feng's eyes widened. "Me? A second-tier swordsman? Even if I wanted to, my strength is far from enough." Li Daoxian immediately shook his head. "You can't become a real Snow God Guardian now, but you can join the Snow God Guardians Genius Camp. Every year, we will intermittently recruit some sword geniuses into the Snow God Guardian to become candidates for the youth camp. Once you reach the Sword Master realm, you will be officially appointed as Snow God Guardians. At that time, you will start to be assigned tasks. The privileges enjoyed by the youth camp are the same as those of the Snow God Guards. Once you enter the youth camp, you will have access to all kinds of advanced sword techniques and Taoist arts, all of which can be obtained at a very small cost. Although you are only a second-tier swordsman, you have enormous potential. So, if you have no objections, I can directly grant you the identity of the Snow God Guard youth camp." "What?" Liu Feng's mouth gaped open. How could this person in front of him have such great power? Weren't the Snow God Guards only answerable to the Emperor of the Empire? At this moment, the middle-aged man who had been silent all along spoke up, smiled and said, "Young man, don't take it to heart. Elderly is the commander of the Snow God Guard and is also a member of the royal family. He is deeply trusted by His Majesty, and that's why he has the power to appoint Snow God Guards." "The surname is Li?" Liu Feng's eyes lit up. This is indeed the current imperial surname. Could this person really be a member of the royal family? Li Daoxian flipped his hand, and a silver-white token appeared in his palm. The mark on it was a fierce polar snow eagle. "This is the Snow God's token. If you agree to join the Snow God's Guard, then accept this token." Li Daoxian looked at Liu Feng and handed the token to the young man. Upon seeing the token, Liu Feng hesitated, knowing that accepting it would mean serving the Emperor. However, after weighing the pros and cons, he accepted it. For now, becoming a Snow God Guard offered many advantages, and as for becoming a full member, that was still a long way off. He could make plans then. Li Daoxian then revealed a satisfied smile. "Congratulations on becoming the 28th member of the Snow God Guard Youth Camp. I look forward to your future performance and hope that you can be promoted to a full member and serve the Empire." 28. A strange light flashed in Liu Feng's eyes. Indeed, the entire youth camp had only 27 members before he joined, which was far too few. However, on the other hand, it was enough to show that the threshold for entering the youth camp was extremely high. Ordinary geniuses probably couldn't get in. Perhaps only those exceptionally talented prodigies could catch the eye of these leaders.